Okay, last page, and unfortunately, we're gonna have to go to see our equations. So we're gonna see if R and G are inverses of each other, again, using composition functions. So R and G. R and G. Okay, so let's see which one we have to do first. So R is, I'm just gonna write them down here. Here's R, and then I'll erase in a bit. So R of X equals X squared plus 5. All right, here we go. So I paused and here we are. So R of X is X squared plus 5. G of X is the square root of X minus 5. So let's go ahead for the first one and take G, that's what this says, and put it into R. So this is going to go right here. So n for x will be the square root of x minus 5, and all of that's supposed to be squared, and then I still have the plus 5. So what's going to happen here is the square root and the squared will cancel each other out, so you have x minus 5, and then these 5's can cancel out, so we just get x. So we are on the way to showing that these are inverses of each other. So on the next one, what we're going to do is we're going to take R and put it into G. So I'll still have my big square root, but instead of x, I'll have x squared plus 5, and then I'll still have the minus 5. And what I'll do is just come in here and clean up first. So these 5's will cancel out, and then I'll just have the square root of x squared, which those cancel out, the square root and the squared, so I just get to x. So yes, these are inverses. Now, if you are interested in the solving portion, here's your retake for that. So check for extraneous solutions when there are domain restrictions. So domain restrictions come with x being in the denominator and with x being in a square root. So it looks like 22 and 23 will be the ones I check for domain restriction. Otherwise, let's go ahead and go. All right, so what I'm going to do is start solving for x, one type of x. So I'm going to move my addition subtraction first. So I'm going to subtract the 3 over, which leaves me with a 2. And then I don't see any multiplying or dividing, so I'll need to get rid of the exponent. A 1/3 is like a cubed root. So you could, if you want, cube root it with a check mark, but we could also just use the exponent's reciprocal, so 3 or 3 over 1, because 1/3 times 3 right here is the first power, and we can make the first power invisible, so we'll just have x minus 6. But then what you have to realize is you're taking 2 to the 3rd power, not 2 times 3, so I would get 8. Then I can add the 6, and when I'm done, I get 14. All right, next one. I do see more than one type of x. I will be factoring, so the first thing I'm going to check out is a GCF, and I don't see one. So I'm going to go to my x. So I'm going to need factors of -4 that make -3, and that's going to be a 4x squared, a 1x squared, with the 4 being negative. So here I have to slow down because x and x definitely don't work. At the very least, I'm going to need x squared, and to get 2x to the 4th, I'll have to put a 2 here, which means I need to think about the loops. So 2 times what will make my -4x squared, and that's a -4, and then x squared times what makes a +1. So I've got my factors. Now I can set each factor equal to 0. So 2x squared plus 1 equals 0. Subtract the 1, divide by 2, and then square root. So when I square root, I'm going to get 2 answers. I'll be taking the square root of a negative number, so I'm going to have an I, and then just whatever the square root of 1/2 happens to be. In my other one, I will add 4, and then I will square root again, which I'll get 2 answers, and it will be 2. All right, next problem. This is one, when I'm done, I will check to see my, for extraneous solution. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract the 34 over. So that's going to give me 6. And then I'm going to get rid of my square root by squaring. So that'll leave me with 2x equals 36, and then I'll divide by 2. So when I'm done, I get 18. So let's just see if that 18 works. So if I put it back in here, do I get 40? So this will become the square root of 36. That's 6. And yes, 40 equals 40. So we will keep that answer. The next one, same idea. I need to get the x alone. So on the first one, we had to isolate the square root by moving the 34. Here we don't have to isolate it because it's already isolated. So just to get to that stuff under the square root, I'm going to square the left side, which means I'll square the right side. The left side is 9x plus 14. The right side is x squared. I have more than one type of x, so I'm going to factor. So I'm going to move my 9x and 14 over to the other side. And here goes my x. So factors of negative 14 that become negative 9. Let's see, did I mess this up? Yeah, we're going to have to change this. So real quick change, otherwise this is not going to work. Let's change this into a negative 14. So that when I move it over, it is a positive 14. So now we can do 7x and 2x with them both being negative. So we will be fixing 23 as a class, but if you didn't notice, then here it is. All right, so this is simple factoring because it's x squared, so I can just put the x's in there. I can put the minus 7 and minus 2 in there, and then when I'm done, I get x equals 7 and x equals 2. So let's see if those work. Don't have as much room, so I'm going to erase my factor x real quick. And let's see if we put 7 in. So 9 times 7, take away 14, is that the same as 7? So again, we're going to get 63. 63, take away 14, that's 49. And yes, we get the left side equal the right side. So 7's good. And now I'm just going to repeat the same thing with 2. And I'll just put it right here. All right, so on the left side, I get 18, take away 14. That's the square root of 4, which is 2. So then, yes, 2 equals 2. So we'll keep both answers here. All right, next one. I see lots of types of x's, so we're going to factor. I do not notice a GCF, but with 4 terms, we're going to group. This was a weakness last section. And I'm going to look for a GCF, which is 2x squared, which leaves me with x plus 5, which means when I GCF this, if you remember, I'm going to need another x plus 5. Matching parentheses, which means I'll be taking a 3 out. All right, so my factors are the matching set, the stuff on the outside, and now I'm going to solve for each problem. So for this, I'll get a negative 5. For this one, I'm going to subtract 3. I'm going to divide by 2. And then I'm going to square root. So 2 answers on my square root, plus, minus. Square root of a negative number is I, and then whatever the square root of 3/2 is. All right, that is your review for spiraling.